Good morning, it's Saturday the 25th of April. So today I'm just going to do a dedicated review on Bitcoin. I'm not going to look at anything else, so it's going to be quite focused, and I'm going to go into a little bit of depth and look at some plans, as well as, just asking the question whether this is a local top. We'll look at some plans for both directions and take it from there. Okay, so the move up has really been very two-sided. It hasn't been the sort of overwhelming of sellers that you tend to want to see in a trending environment. So we've seen a bit of a staircase pattern to the upside, impulses leading to consolidation and retracements, big OI flushes, but the trend has continued, right? And we've come into this 4-day composite high and failed here so far. So the question we need to ask now is this the top, or is there a possibility that we continue to trade up into those VWAP destinations that we talked about previously? So purely from a VWAP perspective, our objective, sorry, I need to clean these charts up. Start these afresh. So I'll take the quarterly here. This is obviously confluent with the developing month as well, given we started a new quarter and a new month in April. So this is April's value and quarterly one's value. So purely based on VWAP, we returned into March's value here, traded into the quarterly value low, and on this basis that we got above previous quarter's VWAP, our upside destination based on VWAP alone is sort of 85k, right? We've got some significant amount of overlap in this area, being 2024's value low, quarterly one's value high, and there are some other overlapping VWAP levels in the sort of 84 to 88k range. However, that ignores the fact that we've just tested this imbalance and failed here so far. So, the question is now, is this the local top, or do we indeed continue up towards this area next? So I think we've seen most of the ingredients you would want to see or expect to see at a local top, in terms of open interest getting very extended, in terms of there being a big spot offer, and in terms of spot selling starting in this consolidation, as well as a bit of momentum loss. So the ingredients for a top are there, but it's too early to say whether this is it. So, if we look at open interest, this is Z-scores with a 20-period look back. Right, we've come into that 2 level again. A lot of OI added on that day into that leg. There was a significant amount of effort put in. If we're coming back and look at the flows, I won't bother, but there was a significant amount of buying delta into this high, which failed. It's quite similar to this high, to be honest. And yeah, we've since seen Binance and Bitfinex notably selling in this consolidation over the latter part of the week. So as I say, the ingredients for a top are here, but it's too early to say whether this is it. Now, for me, the top would likely be confirmed if we lost this 4-day composite and re-accepted back within this previous 3-day composite, which overlaps with the 4-day composite low. So a break below 76.3-ish, that would for me mark the top. And it's not going to necessarily happen straight away. And given that we have a new month at the end of this week, so May is on Friday, right? We'll have new monthly value to work with here as well, and that will also give us a good reference point going forward, particularly given that the developing month's value, which is this value, has been well respected during this uptrend. Okay, so we've had attempts to break back into it, which have all failed, and this has supported the uptrend so far. So at the end of the month, we're going to have new monthly value, which is going to be somewhere between 77k as a value high and 70k as a value low. In fact, I'm just going to come to the monthly here. And the reason I am going to do that is because we can then see that we have some confluence at 70k in the form of March's VWAP sitting alongside April's value low. But in any case, acceptance back under April's value high in the new month would signal that the top is in to me. So couple of levels to watch there, being that 4-day composite low, which we talked about, and then ultimately April's value high. So break back inside there and retest would probably signal that we're likely to trade in towards 70k ultimately and traverse April's value. But that doesn't have to happen straight away, and as I say, there's no guarantee that the top is in here. The other thing I would look for potentially in terms of a setup for a swing short, assuming that the top is in, Obviously, let me just zoom in right here. So we haven't really tested the highs since selling off from there in the early part of the week. Just been balancing 3 or 4 days of value created between 77.5 and 78.5 approximately. And we have this high volume node and naked point of control just sitting around 79k, which I think I would like to see tested again. Really, I think if we can have another attempt at that level and potentially fail there, that would again be a sign that buyers are unable to break this. So an attempt to push into that level, rejection there, and then reacceptance within value here would again add weight to the fact the possibility that this is the local top from a sort of medium to higher time frame perspective. So those are the bearish scenarios I can see. One would be rejection here. Maybe we even sweep this high and fail there again. I'm not sure that would be so likely. But yeah, rejection of that high volume node and reacceptance in value would potentially be bearish, at least on the medium time frame towards this level. And if we break below that, then I think it's pretty cooked, and we're likely to potentially trade towards that 70k area, being back below April's value high. Okay, so those are the bearish scenarios. Now the bullish scenarios. So I do think there is still a possible decent long from 76k. If we can come and test this 3-day composite and fail to break inside it, I could see at least a bounce from here, right? So if we get a failed break inside the 3-day comp, we could at least trade back up and test this area again. And then a failure here could be another sign of weakness. There are multiple ways this could play out. And it's just a case of reading the exceptions picture as it develops and building a thesis as it, as you get more evidence, essentially. So those are, that there is a long scenario here. And actually, there is still a possibility, I think, that we trade into this area and then go higher. So if we can, from there, reaccept within this value, and then ultimately what we need to do to be bullish is accept above this 4-day composite. These are all good reference points going forward. Then I think we could very well trade up towards that 84k area being previous quarter's value area high. So a few ideas there, but that's the sort of bearish line in the sand. If we can get above there, then I think we will trade higher. I think anything in this area is a little bit of a grey area, right? Direction is not going to be super clear until either side of this breaks. So swing shorts once we accept below 76.2. If we get above 79.5-ish, then I think we can trade up towards 85, although potentially some resistance here. But those VWAP levels, the anchored VWAP from the all-time high, come into play. And in between, I think you just need to keep a little bit of an open mind. But to me, things aren't looking particularly great right now. And I think there is a decent case for this being the top. I think that pretty much is everything I wanted to say, actually. So it didn't take too long. Yeah, so near term, would not be shorting this level, right? You do not want to be shorting value lows. The only way you'd ever short at value lows is if we get acceptance below and then failure to get back within. Then it's fair game. But trying to force a breakdown from value is just how you get chopped up or squeezed out altogether. So yeah, would like to see us have another attempt at the highs from here. But we'll see how it develops, right? We'll see how it develops. It's the weekend. I'm just going to take a day off. I don't really care what happens over the weekend. I think if we dump on a Saturday or a Sunday, we're going to the move's probably going to get retraced on a Monday anyway. So yeah, not too interested in trading this over a weekend. But I would like to see us trade higher today. I've got still got some alt positions that would benefit from BTC trading up into 79k again. But yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, let's just take a quick look at the TPO. Could do it on TradingView, but we'll use this. It's slightly better. Maybe I will do it on TradingView. So if I just, I haven't matched this. Yeah, so we've got this naked point of control, haven't we, at 78.8. That's the level we talked about. We've just about front ran it. I mean, we more or less tested it, to be fair, but I do think it has a chance of being tested again, given that it got front ran on this attempt. So that was obviously my plan earlier in the week. So this naked point of control, 78.8, taking out these highs, and then should that result in a failure above this value, I think that would be a good shorting opportunity. So hopefully we can do that, right? I think that would be a good shorting opportunity if we see rejection there. For now, value low is holding, would probably expect it to trade up again. So that's pretty much it. Set your alerts and wait, right? I'm personally not interested in trading this value anymore. I want to see a failed break either side of it to get involved again. It's just become a bit of a slow grind in this area, but I do think this is probably a long, right? We're at value lows and we haven't broken down. In fact, what we have done is traded below value and then reclaimed it again. So it's actually a decent long setup. Invalidation below this low. I'm not going to take it, but it's there. So that is that for the time being. I will speak to you next time. Hopefully we'll have some more evidence by then. Cheers.